Hey folks, good evening. How are you all going? Hi Michelle, how is it up on your end? Is it rainy the way it is on my end? Because it is, oh my goodness, the weather outside. I was like, I just want to go and wrap up and watch a movie and, line with Starboy. So I'm glad that other people made the effort to be here with me this evening. So hi Avril, hi Leslie, hi Merlene, hi Sheldon, hi Paulette, hi Adana, hi Lenlise, Pamela, Kwame, Lisa Marie, Anna, Jennifer. Good evening to all of you. Hi Anne McCarthy, Debbie, Liza, Fabian, Nikisha, Craig. Hey, look, Craig, you find time to be on one of my lives while it happened. A shock. You ain't go gym this evening? Hi, all of you. Thank you so much for being here this evening and choosing to spend time with me this evening. Because I know you have plenty other things all you could be doing with all the time. So I know most of you seem to be on Facebook. I'm checking to see if I have any YouTube persons on. Once you're checking it out from YouTube, just let me know that you're checking it out from YouTube, please. So that way I'm clear that yes, we do have a simulcast taking place. So hi Joanne, hi Romanos, hi Anetta, good. Hi Lorna, nice to see all of you. So I'm back. I hadn't meant to take this much time off. I see Camille is on YouTube, so good, lovely. We are on both platforms. Hi Brian, good. We on both platforms. You all have no idea how relieved I am that I was able to work it out so that we on both platforms. And there's a reason I'm doing it this way. There are a number of persons who don't have Facebook accounts. And so what they tend to do is wait for the upload or come to me and ask me how to get the video. And I said to myself, you know what? I want to make it so that it shows on YouTube the same time it's showing on Facebook. So if you have friends who don't have a Facebook account, tell them that they can go to YouTube, look for the News Source channel, click like on the channel, obviously. Also click subscribe on the channel, and you can also make a request for notifications. And so that way, every single time I have something that is coming up, you will get the notification that something new is going on News Source. Hey, Carla McIntyre. Hi, Naveed. Hi, Carol Campbell. Hi, Debbie Davidson. Good. And part of the reason that I have decided to do it this way is that I too would like to make a shift away from Facebook. If only because the energy on Facebook get into me. As in, I find that the energy is, it's not pleasant. So if I can be, on Facebook less or managing my social media presence in a particular way, then yeah, this will be great. So I'm glad to have it done this way. And so my fans, my supporters, my followers on all ends can pay attention to me. Yes, good. So where to start, boy? Where to start? So the last time I was here, I would have wrapped things up with a little audio clip, and we're gonna get into that a little bit more. But let me dial it back a little bit. I need to greet some of you. Hi Roslyn, hi Marcia, hi Gerard, hi Jewel, hi Carol Guevara. Yes, I missed doing the lives. So actually, let me explain that. I like putting together the information. I like doing the research. I don't even mind so much having to set up the studio. I'm still not a huge fan of sitting in front of a camera and having to look at myself, talk to myself on a camera. But you know what? I go get accustomed to it. However, what I don't necessarily like is, I guess, the pressure sometimes, because you do a live, you put out information, you do the research, and all of those things are fine. And then after you put the information, there are a lot of personal attacks and a lot of personalizing of things when the information that I'm putting out is information that often the public has access to. And what I've done is pretty much just pulled it together and help it to make sense. Because all you know me, I like to make things make sense. So I see Richard is asking me this question. How do I look at you on YouTube? You go over to YouTube, look for the News Source channel, and subscribe to the News Source channel. To the best of my knowledge, it's up and running there right now. I'm seeing Marceline Allen say that, you know, she over on YouTube and she's looking at me via YouTube. Avril St. Clair Celestin is there right now. Who else is on YouTube? Jennifer Martindale is on YouTube. Because your comments are coming up and I'm seeing either the Facebook or the YouTube icon, next to it. So I know I know who's watching me from where. Hi Alexander. Alexander says, "Oi goddess, blush." So thanks so much for that compliment. Right, Debbie Davidson is across there. Moses Alexander is there. Tara Noel is there. Rodman 17 is there. And Debbie Davidson is saying that she left Facebook because she started watching it live on Facebook and she went over to YouTube. David Vincent is on YouTube as well. Flo Nicholas is on YouTube. And the rest of you, most of you, are on Facebook. So I know where the majority of my audience is. I know that the majority of my audience is on Facebook. But at the same time, I feel that I can be building or expanding, spreading over into YouTube because there are loads of people who don't have Facebook accounts and further to that, don't even want Facebook accounts. And I can understand that. So it's a rainy Sunday evening here in Trinidad and Tobago and probably lots of other parts of the Caribbean as a result of the weather system. So please be careful, please be safe out there, folks. And of course, brace and prep for the coming weather that is moving in, because there would have been a press conference earlier today with ODPM and Rural Development and Public Utilities talking about what to expect for the next 4 or 5 days with this weather system. Bart says we worship you. Bart, I ain't able now. I ain't able. I don't need anybody worshiping me at all. Thank you for the compliments. But I'm not pushing that kind of adoration or adulation. Stephanie Santana says she's seeing me on both Facebook and YouTube. Okay, good. So I feel like we're absolutely clear on where everybody is seeing me and what is taking place, and I'm happy about that. Good. I could live with that, folks. So yes, share the live, let people know, let the live build. And let me use a line from Winston Ragu, let the live build. Yes, the whole business of trolls too, that's one of the reasons that I feel like I want to be able to transition, because I'm real tired of some of the troll behavior. And I want to say, we will get trolls on posts. We will get trolls on the lives. And what I need you to start doing is ignoring them, because I don't want the lives to be a space where you are arguing back and forth with trolls and missing some of the things that I'm saying. So let the trolls come on, because once the trolls come on, what they're doing is building my numbers. And when they're building my numbers, that means more traction for me, right? So don't get vexed with the trolls. Let the trolls do their job, which is to come and make bacchanal on a thread. But once you ignore them, then it ain't too much bacchanal they could really make. All right, so we here. Let me scroll down and try to get into this thing with you all. So what did I miss? What did I miss in the last couple of weeks? There's a lot that happened in the last couple of weeks, and one of the first things that happened in the last couple of weeks is I find out this lady name is Sushila. I didn't know that her name was Sushila. The entire time I've been seeing her. I know her name is Kamla Prasad, which would have been her maiden name, and then Kamla Prasad Bisessa, because she would have gotten married to Dr. Gregory Bisessa. So when I find out her name is Sushila, I was like, okay, cool. Now, there are a couple things that we're going to be discussing here this evening with respect to Sushila. So you're going to be seeing Sushila plenty in the live this evening. Sushila will be featuring and starring plenty. First of all, today Sushila party have internal elections. And it has been the most low-key of elections ever. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Devant this afternoon, and I'm there saying to him, I say, but you barely hear anything about this internals. It's almost like the internals ain't happen at all. And I was saying to him, the internals feeling like awake. Because usually when any political party in Trinidad and Tobago having internal elections to switch up leadership inside the party or to change up people from different posts, it's a set of all noise and bacchanal. 2 years, we in 2022. So late 2020, when there was the last challenge for leadership inside the United National Congress. Remember, Devant was going to throw his hat in the ring, Vasant threw his hat in the ring, and of course, there was a very vociferous campaign. The campaign happening in the last couple of weeks, and it was like awake. It was almost like people sit down to mourn the passing of the dead with the United National Congress. And I'm hearing that up until this evening, it would have been maybe about 5,000 people, if so much, have gone out to the polls. Now, maybe the weather has something to do with it. I don't know. But what I do know is normally Kamla herself could guarantee about 12,000 people showing up to vote for her. So when I realized that the turnout was so low and that the turnout was mostly senior citizens, elderly persons, it hit me. People are exhausted. People are tired. People are fed up. And I don't just mean Anthony Morgan Beach, your mouth real nasty, you know. Only white chair and brown dog. I don't think that it's just UNC people that are tired of what is going on politically. And remember, we have another internals coming up later on in the year, PNM internals. But that may prove to be a different sort of internal. But the information that I've gotten thus far is that the internals, you know, is real low-key. Just now, this is what I was told. Low UNC voter turnout, and I was at 28 minutes past 4 this evening, as you can see. The UNC voter just simply refused to come out and participate in the sham elections orchestrated by Kamla Prasad Bisessa, as of 11 a.m. today. There was only 3,600 voters participating, and this is significantly less than the over 10,000 that came out in 2020 and 2017. Right? So, apparently, very low-key internal election. So I'm hoping that by tonight we have the results. I guess maybe tomorrow morning we will get the results. 30,900 voted in 2020. Well, thanks for that information, Sharon. I didn't remember that it was as many as 30,000 persons that voted in 2020. Dre sounds very happy to have me back. So Sushila having some stress today with the internal elections. But I can't say that I'm surprised, because the caliber of politics that the opposition has been pushing, not just for the last year, not even just for the last 2 years, but certainly from 2010 to now, is the kind of politics that eventually alienates people. Then I went up on Twitter and see Gavin Nicholas. All I remember Gavin Nicholas. Anybody remember who Gavin Nicholas is? I had to stop for a minute when I saw it. I'm like, Gavin Nicholas, who is he again? And then I was like, right, the man who is most famous for getting a Kobo sweat to be Attorney General and having the most manicured eyebrows in the world. Garvin Nicholas jumped up on people Twitter and decided he's looking for 41 persons to step forward so that he can put, have a slate of people to run for elections. And I realize this is the season where a number of small political parties are coming out, cropping up, and looking to establish themselves as being minor forces and minor tides, and tapping into whether it's small pockets of voters or medium-sized pockets of voters. And then they're going to pull together and try a coalition again in 2025. So I looked at that. I mean, I've been looking at the PDP as well, because I know in the last couple of days the PDP has been campaigning in a number of small communities that are traditionally PNM communities, but they're like depressed in terms of income. So low income, so small low income communities that have traditionally voted PNM in the past. PDP in the last week or so, they've been doing a lot of work in those communities. My understanding is that there is a certain Bitcoin investor in the country who is funding this foray by the PDP into those communities. So I'm looking at what's going on with all of these new parties, all of these small parties, and thinking, all right, interesting. They've started early. Because normally when we look into push for coalition politics as I guess an alternative to a PNM government, people usually wait like a year before the general elections or 9 months before the general elections to start up a set of small parties and interest groups, and then they come together as a coherent force. So it will be interesting to see how starting parties from now, all of these small parties, what will happen in future. So I see somebody make an offer to me here. So this is Rennie Rampasad, and Rennie is saying, let me and you make a party now. Make a party. I am assuming that's Mankind's cute. So hi Rennie Rampasad. Rennie Rampasad is a little bit upset with me this afternoon because I have been posting stories to my page about the lawsuit taking place in Guyana that involves a Trinidadian company. So for some reason, Rennie thinks that I should be posting or putting up certain kinds of posts that are, I guess, promoting the Trinidadian company. I'm just sharing news stories, Rennie. That's what I've done. And I've pulled excerpts from the news story out and put them up along with the link to the news story. So you don't need to be that upset about me having posted stories that are available on the internet about the energy industry in Guyana, okay? What makes the story interesting is that it involves a Trinidad and Tobago company. What makes the story interesting is that it's a legislative issue. It's to do with the law and how a company here is attempting to circumvent the laws of Guyana. It is looking at how multinational companies do business. So I don't see what you're so upset about. Like, I seriously not seeing what you're so upset about. And no, I'm not interested in making a party. I'm not interested in getting involved in electoral politics at all. But Rennie, if you want to start a political party and you want to be interviewed, I'm happy to interview you. So you just, send me an inbox message saying, I want to be interviewed about my political party, and I will arrange to do a recorded interview. All right? That's That's what I could say to you, because I like to look at politics and talk about current affairs and stuff. So Fuad is going up against Sushila, and I guess by tonight we're gonna know it is taking place. But I'm really not expecting that there's going to be any change within the United National Congress. The way I see it, Kamala is going to hold on to leadership within the United National Congress, but with a much smaller number of votes, and we're going to be seeing more of the same within the party and, of course, within the parliament. Then what's the next thing I see? Polygraph tests. Now, Trinidad Guardian could fool some people. Ansa McCall could fool some people. Sabga could fool some people, but Sabga can't fool me. Big headline in the papers today about people paying thousands to find out if their spouses cheat. Which man you know, or which woman you know, let me make it across the board. Which man or woman you know going to agree, if they know they're horning, going to agree to sit down and do a polygraph test? Or they believe that people actually spending $3,500 to do polygraphs? Who have that kind of money to spend when all you need to do is get the person's phone and go through the messages, right? Or go through their social media? Why would you be spending $3,500 to do a polygraph test to find out if the man or the woman horning you? So I read the story and listen, people paying thousands to find out if spouses cheat. When you read through the story, at no point in time does it say who paid or how many persons have paid. There's the first line that says polygraph tests are in high demand, and after that you have no data, no numbers, nothing. The rest of the story is an ad. It's an advertisement. It is an advertorial. So an entire story is written to introduce the public to this new service that Amalgamated Security Service is offering. So if all you have $3,500 in this hard guava season, that all you could spend, all you could go to Amalgamated Services and pay them $3,500, and I hope all your spouse who cheating on all you show up to take the polygraph test. Because I'm like, if I had a significant other and I horn in my significant other, who getting me to go and do a polygraph test? Like, why would I be saying, well, yeah, I'm going to do a polygraph to prove to you that I ain't horning you? No, it's not making sense. And I'm thinking to myself, but all kind of people who could be able to tell you whether the man or woman horning you or not. Because you always know. There's always evidence. Somebody does always see. Or it always have some weird message that has pop up somewhere, somehow, someday. So I looked at that and I was like, who they feel they're fooling with this newspaper article? So a newspaper that is owned by Ansa McCall does an article about a security firm that is affiliated with the Sabgas. I mean, come on, man. All you feel everybody dotish? No, we not dotish. We are not all dotish. So that is the UNC internals. That's the other things that we missed. So there was a little bit more. I remember telling you we're going to be talking about Sushila a lot, right? So Sushila, let me backpedal. Camille Robinson Regis. Where Auntie Camille, right? Camille Robinson Regis, those of you who don't know, she's currently the Minister for Housing, right? Camille, she was the Minister of Planning and Development, but now she's the Minister of Housing. Camille Robinson Regis got up on a political platform more than a month ago. You all remember when I had done the last live about the Sabga report, that report from 1997 that talked about all of the abuses that was taking place in the state homes. Right. So after I had done that live, the UNC was under pressure. Robert Sabga was also under pressure to clear his name. And there was a lot of talk. The opposition had said a lot of things, made a lot of statements, claiming that there was a pedophile ring that was linked to the sitting government. So, in one of their regular community meetings, I think the community meeting was in La Joqueta. I may be wrong, I'm subject to correction, but I believe it was in the La Joqueta constituency, which is Camille Robinson Regis's constituency. And at that meeting, Mrs. Robinson Regis got up and made a statement about pedophile rings and who actually have questions to answer. And she challenged Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa to come out and come clean about the report from 1997 and to prove where she getting this information from about a pedophile ring. That meeting took place. I halfway listened to the meeting. I had it playing in the background while I was doing some other things. And more than a week passed after that meeting. And there's a reason I'm talking about this in this way. Camille Robinson Regis would have called Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa by her full government name at that meeting. And we know that the United National Congress it don't sleep. It's not the sort of party that doesn't respond to things. Thank you, Mary Francis. Mary says the meeting was in Arima, right? Her constituency is Aruka Maloney. Thank you. Thank you for the corrections. So, the meeting took place in Arima. Mrs. Robinson Regis, Camille Robinson Regis, are calling everybody by the full government name this evening. So nobody could say that I'm calling some by the full government name and I am calling all by the full government name. So Camille Robinson Regis, in a meeting in Arima, calls Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa by she full government name and say, you have questions to answer the questions. 9 whole days pass. 9 days pass before Kamla responds to it. And I felt that it was particularly interesting that it took Kamla 9 days to come out and respond. So Kamla comes out and she responds 9 days later. And when Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa came out and responded, now, me didn't have an issue with Kamla turning around and saying, what wrong with the name Sushila? Isn't it a nice name? Me didn't have an issue with that at all. And I didn't mind that she was there saying to her following, her audience, that she had a lovely name, that there was nothing to be ashamed of where her name was concerned. I didn't mind. I listened. And I knew that what was going to take place. The minute I hear her start to talk about her name and her name being a lovely name and the kind of name it was, I said to myself, she is going to take this and turn it into a race or ethnicity thing. And so said, so done. But it didn't stop at alluding or suggesting that Camille Robinson Regis had a problem with Hindu origin names or Indo-centric names. It didn't stop there. It could have stopped there. And that would have been enough, and she might have been in a position to get away with making that statement, right? She might have been able to say, well, Camille called me by my full government name, and I feel she called me by my full government name because she have a problem with Indo-centric names. That might have been what she could have get away with. But it is when Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa decided that she was going to then talk about who have slave master names, that's when a whole line got crossed. Because you see, it is important that we note that it wasn't enough for her to focus on the fact that her full government name was called out. It is important for us to pay attention to the fact that the only way Kamla could have completed the conversation she was having with her audience was to then turn the entire thing into a ridiculing of the Afro-descended population of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is why this is disturbing. The person who called Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa by her full government name wasn't the entire Afro-descended population of Trinidad and Tobago. It was one person, the leader of government business, Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis. I don't know if Mrs. Robinson Regis has a middle name, which is why I am calling that out too. So if you had an issue, Kamla, if you had a genuine issue, the issue would have been with Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis. So once you had a genuine issue, if you had a genuine grouse, it would have been between you and Camille Robinson Regis. You would have found ways to just lash out at Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis. But that's not what you did. Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa decides that in front of her audience, her UNC audience, her UNC support base, she would then insult all persons that came here as enslaved people. And that is where the problem starts. Now, I ain't going any further into Sushila and she problems with the names of persons who were enslaved here. Emancipation coming up. The month of July is soon going to be here, and you all know me, I just like to take time in the month of July and focus on emancipation related issues. So when July reach, bet your bottom dollar, put your pot on fire, we will be sitting down right here and discussing Kamla Sushila Prasad Bisesa and her issues with people's names. Because up to now, Kamla can't tell nobody, can't explain to anybody why she have a problem with people having the names of their enslavers. But it didn't stop just there with Kamla, because of course everybody had something to say about it. People immediately understood that there was something wrong about what the opposition leader said. So there was a back and forth, a to and fro, and people who were saying, well, it ain't nothing wrong with what she say, and other people who would have been extremely offended by it. I was offended by it. It's not that I felt that it's something Kamla wouldn't say, because she's very capable of saying things like that. Y'all remember that Kamla is the person that hit me with the blank man on the other side. Do I still have that clip, boy? Let me see if I could find that clip for you. Because I remember it was, I remember that. I remember the Oreo comment. There are a number of things that I remember. Just now, how am I finding that? Here we go.
I know that some people are concerned, and in fact, the black man on the other side talked about kindergarten. I know that some people are concerned, and in fact, the black man on the other side talked about kindergarten. I know that some people are concerned, and in fact, the black man on the other side talked about kindergarten. I know that some people are concerned, and in fact, the black man on the other side talked about kindergarten. I know.
Right. So that was Kamla back in, oh my goodness, that's 2020 or 2021? 2020, because it was around it was the year of the general elections. So back in June, July, somewhere thereabouts of 2020, that was her and the blank man from the other side comment. And what was interesting, or what is noteworthy about that is this: Kamala regularly uses dog whistle language. She knows exactly how to rile people up using race and racism. There are lots of people who come to me and say, I don't think Kamala is racist, as in they don't think that she personally has a problem or an issue with persons of other ethnicities, certainly persons of African descent. And what I will say is this: whether she does or doesn't have a problem with persons of African descent, she's quite comfortable and quite happy using a racist narrative, using dog whistle language to be able to rile up her base and, of course, to continue to feed divisions. And because she's doing that, which is very reminiscent of the politics that Trump uses in the United States, and Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, and they would have used in the United Kingdom as conservatives, because she goes with that right-wing approach to her politics, that's problematic. And it's problematic because you're always ever going to have your voter base responding emotionally and responding in a very vitriolic, toxic way on social media, because they're only engaging with issues at a particular level. They're never going to get to the point where they're delving into issues in a more logical, coherent way. And of course, when she does her Monday night when she does the Monday night meetings, you see a lot of it in the Monday night meetings. She's very, very, very good at using race in that way. And to me, once you're happy and contented to use discriminatory language, to use dog whistle language, to use language that will rile up people into looking at other people as being less than, you're comfortable with racism, So I would say, yeah, you're racist and you're comfortable with it. So, in this whole bacchanal with who say what, whether Kamala whether Camille Robinson Regis should have referred to her as Kamala by her full government name or not, Renuka Singh of the Express jump out in support of Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Now, Renuka is entitled as an individual to have her opinion on things. But if you're going to be functioning as a journalist at a media house, and your social media platform, your social media pages are, how to say it, are a reflection of your position on issues, and then as a reporter you are covering those issues, that might raise questions with your employers. So Renuka Singh would have put up a post indicating that, she didn't really think that there was anything strange. Well, the post implied support for Kamala's position on the whole enslaved name thing, right? And her post caused, it raised my eyebrows, certainly. So I take a screenshot of the post. I put up the screenshot of the post on my page so that people would see, well, this is what reporters in media houses have to say on the issue of persons with enslaved names. Because the post wasn't necessarily about Camille Robinson Regis having used Kamala's full government name. The post was basically saying, oh, Ollie upset because she said enslaved name. What if she had said European name? Implying that the problem that people had with the post, with what Kamala said, was the use of the word enslaved. And if Kamala had used European as opposed to enslaved. Well, actually, Kamala didn't even say enslaved. She said slave. And there's a difference between slave and enslaved. And in the month of July, we will discuss that. So, Renuka took a position that suggested that the problem Afro-descended persons had with Kamala's statement was that Kamala said slave and didn't say European. And basically, had Kamala said European, we wouldn't have a problem. And I looked at that post. My eyebrows was up in my hairline, and I thought to myself, Renuka take all away for us. Renuka is of the opinion that once we see the word Europe, European, or white, everybody is real happy about that. Yes, sir, massa, sir. No, Renuka, no. Many of us think at a much deeper level than that. Many of us know precisely why we had a problem with the comment that Kamala made. It was an attack on the entire Afro-descended population in Trinidad and Tobago that would have its roots in West Africa through the enslavement system. So she didn't just come out and lash Camille Robinson Regis. She lashed all of us. And she lashed all of us because she felt it was okay to say derogatory things about Afro-descended persons. She felt it was okay to poke fun at persons whose original names were taken away from them and other names were imposed on them. So we know, we understand. You don't get to come and explain to us what we have and did not have a problem with. You don't get to do that. Sorry. You don't get to do that as a regular person on social media. You don't get to do that as a journalist. So, I put up a screenshot of her post and I was like, okay, all right. Well, now we know how she feels. Then the next thing I hear is that her editor-in-chief at The Guardian in a WhatsApp chat group or something like that, so raised questions about the implications of her post. So when that was raised, it led to a fair amount of talk within the chat group, and I am told that Miss Singh resigned. So as soon as I get the S, well, actually not as soon as, because I was in a place with poor reception when the S come out. So the story come out, and as soon as I get the S, about an hour or so after I get the S, when I reach back to where signal was stable, I put it up because I wanted you folks to be in a position to hear what was said, or rather to know what transpired to know what would have transpired. And it would have been a Sunday morning. So I think it was between a Saturday evening to a Sunday morning. That was when the resignation took place. And my girl was so upset because I would have put up this, right? Tongue say that she resigned because she get pulled squared for supporting Kamala on Facebook. Next thing, homegirl put up this post. A certain paid political stooge seems to know more than I do about my career. So of course, she comes with her own particular position on the issue. And right after that, I called her out. I put up another post saying, I dare you to say that I lied. Because it wasn't a situation where she was standing up in a newsroom. That's not what I was told. She was not standing up in a newsroom. The entire conversation happened in a social media chat. And that's how I was able to be told that this is what had taken place. Now, what got me annoyed about this post wasn't even the fact that she referred to me as a paid political stooge. Because when you are in a position where you can't fight fair on something, you're going to fight nasty. So name calling me names, them thing, water off my back. I don't stress about them things at all. It is when she comes later down in it to talk about political interference in the newsroom. Listen, this is Guardian Media. This is Answer McCall. Political interference in the newsroom. Which political party could which political party all you think have influence in Guardian media newsroom? If all you had to make a guess, if you all had to make an educated guess and say and decide that there was political interference taking place at Guardian Media, which political party would you think? Which political party? And so is the cognitive dissonance in the post, because at the top, paid political stooge, and everybody knows that in Renuka's mind, the political party that she would associate me with is not the United National Congress. The rest of the country also knows that when you're thinking about political allegiance and Guardian Media, you're not thinking People's National Movement at all. Most people are utterly convinced that the UNC has its tentacles deep inside Guardian Media. So, paid political stooge at the top of the post, and then political interference in the newsroom. All you need to figure out, all you need to pick a struggle, all you need to decide. Am I a PNM stooge? Am I a UNC stooge? And if I am a PNM stooge, how are PNM stooge managing to have political interference inside Guardian Media? And that's how you know that this post, let me point in this direction. This post that she put up makes no sense. It confused from top to bottom. And that's because she jumped out and put up that post to save face, to manage she brand, manage she image, whatever it is, because she didn't want people to realize that technically, because if you had to run to resign on that issue, it means that you were given an ultimatum, right? You were given an ultimatum. You put up your post, the post gets shared, your editor-in-chief asks you a couple of questions, and you were probably given an ultimatum about your position with respect to Kamla and calling people slave names, right? Simple. Very simple. So all of those things happened. All of that took place. And, it ended up being a very, 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 very interesting couple of weeks that I was away from you all. So then this week come, and a couple of things would have happened in international news. Yes, Debbie, she was... If you're talking about Ansa McCall, I don't think you could actually say that the People's National Movement has influence inside Ansa McCall. The kinds of stories that come out, the angles on news stories that come out of Ansa McCall do not ever give the impression that there is any there's any alliance or allegiance between that media house and the sitting government. So whatever. And you see the thing about paid political stooge? They know why they can't call my name, They can't call my name because they have little evidence to show that I have ever been paid to do any political endorsement. I have worked for a number of state agencies in this country, doing work that I am well qualified to do. Nobody could come and say that I have worked for a political party. Right? Nobody could come and say that I have worked for a political party. But let them go along. That's why they can't call my name when they're doing their posts. I just call people whole name. I just call people full government name. And I just say it with my whole chest. Them, they still have to resort to using particular kinds of words and allusions and things. So, I want to look a little bit at the impact of religion on how we shape laws. You all remember child marriage? You all remember when we had the child marriage debate here? It would have been 2016 into 2017. We would have had the the Marriage Act and child marriage and stuff. Trinidad and Tobago is, as you know, a multicultural state. Different ethnic groups, and as a result of having different ethnic groups and people coming here from different parts of the world, lots of different religions. And we have one constitution. We don't have multiple constitutions. But the way in which we do our laws, we make laws, we build laws, we craft laws in a way that would allow for the majority of persons here to be protected by laws. And I say the majority of persons here because our laws don't yet protect everybody. People from the LGBTQIA community are not fully protected by our laws. So people still have to hide a lot of things about themselves with respect to orientation, right? Sexual orientation. We also don't have adequate laws for protecting women at all levels of society. And as you would have seen, when I looked at the SABGA report more than a month ago, we don't protect our children enough. So there's still a lot more that needs to be done with respect to legislation and law enforcement here to protect more of the citizenry. So why am I talking so much about laws? And why am I talking about protection of the citizenry? And why am I talking about it in relation to religion? Back in 2016, when the then Attorney General, when Faris decided that they were going to bring an end to child marriage, it caused a huge uproar here. Something that everybody would have thought is a no-brainer became a polarized issue. You had people from the opposition actively coming out and saying, we're not sure that we want to put an end to child marriage. Anybody else in any other part of the world, it would be a no-brainer. But here we had people making arguments, and the thing is, they had legs to stand on, and let me explain why. Our Constitution enshrines our right to practice religion. Each one of us, every single last one of us, we have a right to practice a religion. And because our society is multicultural, and because our Constitution makes an effort to respect our multiculturalism, for a very long time, we had a marriage act that acknowledged that different religious groups had different marriage practices. And because our Constitution recognized that, the debate then allowed for persons from the Hindu faith and the Muslim faith to come into Parliament and argue that their constitutional rights were being trampled on. And that was actually a pretty strong argument, because our Constitution protects people's rights to a religion and to practice a religion. And part of their religious practice is the age at which they allow children to get married. However, that part of our marriage laws was running counter to the rights of the child agreement that we had signed off on with the United Nations. So because there was a memorandum that we would have signed since the 1990s, indicating that we were going to be protecting children in a more significant way, our marriage laws, our marriage act was actually running counter to what we had agreed to with respect to protecting children. So I want you all to grasp this. Since the 1990s, we would have signed off on that memorandum of agreement, right? Where we would have to improve and step up and improve legislation for how we were dealing with children. The United National Congress would have been in government at that point in time and didn't do anything about amending the Marriage Act, because if they had moved to amend the Marriage Act, they would have alienated a significant portion of their voter base. So the ball gets kicked down the road, and it gets kicked down the road until 2016. And then in 2016, the then Attorney General, Faris Al-Rawi, would have then moved to amend the legislation. Because we have 4 marriage acts here. We have the Christian Marriage Act, Hindu Marriage Act, Muslim Marriage Act, and Orisha Marriage Act. So those 4 religions, those are the 4 major religions that are treated with in terms of the Marriage Act. And what the amendment of that law would have done was make it so that you have to be an adult. Everybody has to be over 18 to be married. And you had 2 religious groups here that were up in arms and saying that their rights were being trampled on. So why have I gone into all of this? I've gone into all of this because this overturning of a law in the United States happened this week. And it's easy for you to say, well, why am I so upset about a law with respect to abortion that was overturned in the United States? I am raising the issue because this law, this ruling, Roe versus Wade, was overturned in the United States based on a religious lobby. So fundamental Christian groups in the United States pushed a very, very, very solid lobby, and they were able to get a law overturned that reflects a specific religious group's position on abortion. And I want us to be careful about this. We live in a multicultural society. Many of us would have a huge problem if one particular religion was used to create laws. We would all have problems with that. And this overturning of this law is not just affecting abortion and a woman's right to abortion. It's also affecting the right to privacy because it impacts on their 14th Amendment, right, which is linked to the right to privacy, and there are a lot of other civil rights that can be attacked. Again, you must be wondering, why am I looking at that? I'm looking at it because when you see a particular type of politics coming out of the United States, that political culture eventually ends up here. That political behavior eventually ends up here. Many of you have made the comparison between Trump America and opposition politics. And I'm saying, if we don't watch ourselves, we are going to see ourselves in a position where religion will be dictating laws. And since not everybody here practices the same religion, it's not fair for religion to be influencing laws. So I'm going to go back to the child marriage example. Imagine if we had still left on our law books that 12-year-old and 14-year-old girls and boys could be married. Even though it fell under the Hindu and Muslim Marriage Act, because those amendments were there in those marriage acts, it meant that people could just decide, okay, I am going to ascribe this to myself because the law provided for it. Right? And you would have had situations where people would have gone and gotten young children married under particular marriage act, a particular part of the marriage act, even though they may not necessarily have been practicing in that religion. So you have to be careful. We have to be vigilant. We can't be in a situation where we are allowing religion to influence how we make and pass laws. Because remember this, and I want you all to remember this because we're going to be talking about this for a couple of weeks. When I say this, I don't mean Roe versus Wade, but this whole issue of laws and how we make laws. Laws are meant to protect everybody or as many persons as possible. You don't make laws to suit a small group of persons. You make laws to protect the wider society. And when you decide that you are going to make laws on the basis of pressure from a small group of persons and take that law and make that a law apply to an entire society, that's unfair, it is unjust, and it is wrong. And what you also need to guard against is this. Religion is something that is very personal. Religion is something that people get very riled up about. Religion is something that, when people sensitive about religion, when they get upset about religion, you can't necessarily speak logic to them. And I don't like to quarrel with people about religion or bash religion. Myself, there's nothing that I practice in particular. But I'm the sort of person that will fight for everybody to have the right to practice religion. But I will also fight for religion to not be imposed on people against their will, and for religious beliefs to not be imposed on people against their will. And so we have to be careful that we are not in a position where we are allowing the religion of some persons to influence laws for all of us. Because when that happens, you are building a society that is unjust and unfair. Right? Imagine if I was Muslim and I was in a position to influence lawmaking in this country, and I imposed my position on things on legislation, and so indicated that because all women have to be in, full garb, whether you're Muslim or you're not Muslim, all women have to be in full garb, covered from head to toe. That's unfair. And so you need to be in a position where, as a society, we're making laws to protect everybody. And you allow religion to have its place within households and within the religious organizations, not wider society. In any case, one of the reasons that this whole thing with Roe versus Wade got me thinking was the way in which the Christian right wing and the Republicans in the United States were able to take a sensitive issue like abortion, and remember, it's not just abortion that the ruling affects. It affects, more importantly, people's right to privacy. But it was how they were able to take a sensitive issue, abortion, an issue that they know people are polarized on, and use that to stir up a society and also to get a controversial ruling made. And I say this and I talk about it because it leads me into what we're going to discuss now. Now, I thought long and hard about doing this particular part of the program. As a matter of fact, there was a part of me that was kind of hesitant because I was like, do I really want to go into this? Do I really want to talk about this issue? Because it's going to get sticky, and it's going to get plenty sticky. But give me a second. Give me a second. So we're going to talk about Chief Justice Archie and what I would call the plot to lynch the Chief Justice that occurred a couple years ago, from 2017, somewhere around 2017. I see Tay asking, where's Starboy? Starboy out walking, Starboy out, stretching his legs. If he was here, I couldn't be doing the live all now. I mean, there's a whole hour I sit down here. Starboy would have been barking by now. So, let me get into it. So I'm shifting over now. I'm shifting gears from those news stories to talk about the Chief Justice. Debbie, what did you miss? The last episode that I had before I went on a little bit of a break, at the end of the episode I played a clip. And I played a clip of a recording. Dillian Johnson had called me and I'd recorded the call, and we had a conversation. So, DJ and the CJ, the DJ refers to Dillian Johnson and CJ refers to the Chief Justice. So, where to start from? Let's start at the beginning. In around March of 2017, the judiciary put out an announcement that it was promoting a number of magistrates to the position of judges. So every so often, applications are put out, or rather promotions take place. People apply to become judges, and when I say people, persons who are within the legal system here, the magistracy, they will put out their applications to become judges, and the Judicial and Legal Service Commission will then review the applications and appoint people as judges. One of the persons who would have applied would have been this lady, Marcia A.S. Caesar, and she was actually the chief magistrate, which means she was the most magistrate of all magistrates in the magistracy. She was the chief magistrate. So she would have applied to become a judge, and she was successful in her application to become a judge. As a matter of fact, I think she was promoted to be a Supreme Court judge, if I'm not mistaken. But not too long after her promotion, because an announcement was made of all of the persons who had applied and who had been promoted to being a judge, she would have been one of them. And right after the announcement was made about all of the persons who had been successful with their application, there was a fiasco, a big bacchanal breakout, and Chief Magistrate Marcia A.S. Caesar lost her job. One, she had to tender her resignation as a Supreme Court judge, and because she had been sworn in as a judge, so she was no longer the chief magistrate, and then had to resign from being a judge. Given the way our laws are written, she couldn't go back to being a magistrate. As a matter of fact, she lost her job, and she couldn't work within the judiciary. I think it's 10 years. Once you've resigned as a judge, once you tender your resignation, once you are a judge and you tender your resignation, you can't serve in the magistracy for 10 years. So you all remember Herbert Volney. He resigned as a judge, joined the UNC. So he was a judge in the morning, tendered his resignation, was on a UNC platform by that evening because he would have gone to their screening and was made the MP for, oh my goodness, it's St. Joseph, right? And after the Section 34 fiasco, having lost his position as a minister, and then losing the seat in St. Joseph, and having tendered his resignation as a judge, he couldn't go back into the judiciary. So there was no job for him to go back to, because you have to wait 10 years before you can work in the judicial system again. That's how our laws are set. So Marcia S. Caesar applies to become a judge, becomes a Supreme Court judge. Then there's a fiasco. The country finds out that she tendered her resignation as chief magistrate, becomes a judge, is sworn in as a judge, but she has 53 matters sitting down on her desk to be attended to. And because she has those 53 matters sitting on her desk waiting to be attended to, the Chief Justice, who is the head of the GLSC, comes under fire because everybody is asking, well, how Olia could promote this woman to be a judge and she still have 53 matters sitting down waiting to be dealt with. And of course, you know how this country goes. You know how everything runs. The issue, the questions raised about Marcia Ayres Caesar's promotion to the Supreme Court are raised by persons from the opposition, right? And there's plenty bacchanal takes place. She tenders her resignation, she loses her job, she takes out a lawsuit against the GLSC and Chief Justice Archie. She loses because basically she was arguing that she was constructively dismissed. She loses, and there are a number of things that are raised. We find out that based on a statement that was made by the GLSC, she didn't tell everybody. She certainly didn't tell the panel when she was being interviewed that she had 53 matters pending and outstanding, and so there was a lot that was not communicated, and that led to a whole fiasco. The interesting thing about that fiasco is this: it raised questions about how this gentleman was running the judiciary. So he came in for a lot of blows because of the Marcia Ayres Caesar issue. And then not too long after that, two persons, Justice Stallmeyer and Justice Hamel-Smith, would have been appointed to the JLSC. And there are laws and rules about how the Judicial and Legal Service Commission was supposed to be constituted. So those two things, the Marcia Ayres Caesar case, the Marcia Ayres Caesar promotion issue, and the appointment of judges to the JLSC, caused a lot of noise surrounding Justice Archie's running and management of the judiciary. Now, what you need to remember is this. This is Trinidad and Tobago. It always have a backstory. It have a backstory everywhere, in everything. And so, I've made the choice today to come and talk a little bit about that backstory. And I want to get into it as quickly as possible and wrap up by about 8:30, hopefully. Right? And so there will be a part 2 to this because there is more that needs to be discussed. So, where to start from? So this gentleman, a former Attorney General, and this gentleman, Devant Maraj, a former government minister, were both part and parcel in the legal challenges against the Chief Justice. Because Devant, Annan would have functioned as the attorney, and Devant would have functioned as the claimant. So all the legal matters would have been raised in Devant's name, and the attorney for it would have been Annan Ram Logan. So I want to go into this. So this is some of the story that the population doesn't know about, and I have to be careful about it. Many people applied to be promoted to be judges in that year. One of the persons who applied, and I cannot name the person, because if I name the person, I go have a lawsuit to answer for, because I don't have the hard documents to say that this person applied. I was told orally that this person applied. And I was also told orally that this person is a very good friend of former attorney generals in this country. So a gentleman applied to be a judge. And when the list of persons who were successful, who was successful in being promoted to being judges, when the list of names came out, that gentleman's name was not there in the list of persons. And so because that gentleman's name was not there in the list of persons, and he was good friends with former attorney generals in this country, and has lots of legal friends and lots of friends in the legal fraternity. His friends in the legal fraternity decided to put up a challenge, right? Raise noise, kick fuss about the fact that he was not promoted. And so there were injunctions filed to prevent some of the persons who became judges. There were injunctions filed to prevent the swearing in of some of the judges. There was a lot of pressure, internal subtle pressure within the judiciary to actually have him be promoted to be a judge after Marcia Ayres Caesar had to tender her resignation as a Supreme Court judge. The person was not promoted to be a judge. So the gentleman who wanted to be a judge was not promoted to be a judge. But what happened was that the entire promotion of Marcia Ayres Caesar became part of a larger battle to remove the Chief Justice from office. But because Trinidad and Tobago is a society where we tend to respond better to highly emotional issues, the group of persons who were attempting to get, not this guy, not the unknown lawyer, the group of persons who was attempting to get this guy out of office realized that they had to go for another angle. And of course, when you're going for another angle, you have to tap into what are the things that just get us riled up as a society. We like bacchanal. We like commerce. So cue an entire debate and discussion fueled by media stories that raised questions about whether Chief Justice Archie should remain as Chief Justice based on his orientation. I don't know how many of you remember the news stories from that period. So the news stories focused or centered around exposés or things that were said by Dillian Johnson. There were also stories about a young man by the name of Kern Romero. And generally, there were news stories that centered around or circled around and stopped just short of making homophobic remarks or calling out the Chief Justice as being a member of the LGBTQ community. I have no idea to this day what the Chief Justice's orientation is, nor am I concerned. It's not my business because he and I don't share a pillow. But in the course of the entire fiasco taking place, Dillian Johnson reached out to me because by that time, let me see, this was 2017, I had started putting up posts about the issue and raising questions about why were we trying to determine his fitness to be Chief Justice based on perceptions of his orientation. Because if I am heterosexual or homosexual or trans or whatever, I don't see how that particular detail ought to determine whether or not I do a good job at my job, right? So there were a number of persons out in the public domain regularly making statements about the effectiveness of Chief Justice Archie. And there would be allusions being made to scandals surrounding him and of course raising questions about his orientation. And there are a number of faces that would have been used on a regular basis. We would have seen Israel Khan, for instance. He would have been one of the persons raising questions about Chief Justice Archie and whether Archie should be there. There would have been questions raised by Avery Sinanan, a senior counsel. There would have been questions raised by Martin Daly, another senior counsel. So we had a very tense discussion for the better part of 2 years, 2017 into 2018, where the majority of the complaints that were being made about the Chief Justice was not necessarily set in laws on whether or not he had breached a law or broken a law. And I will, in the part 2 to this, I will get into that to some extent. But what we focused on were a series of news stories that focused on friendships, right, or allegations of friendships with young men, and alleging that he had organized favors for these men. So using his capacity as a Chief Justice, that he would have organized a range of things. And one of the stories talked about housing. And let me tell you what was curious to me about that housing story. The story indicates that the Chief Justice would have provided a list of names, 12 names. And he sent the 12 names to the HDC, indicating that he was recommending these 12 persons for housing. What for me was strange about that story is that the HDC housing policy actually allows for that. When I say it allows for that, it allows for persons to recommend people for housing. It actually, if I have to do an HDC application, I can take the application and go and get it endorsed by somebody of high standing in society, somebody who they feel, I guess, will have influence. In the case of the endorsement for housing, one of the things that was not necessarily put into the public domain is that the 12 names that were put forward by the Chief Justice were 12 persons who had been formally in the formally in the prison system, and so they were not in a position to be able to get housing like through a bank, through a mortgage or something like that. So they actually needed access to the HDC system to be able to get housing. And so 12 names were put forward, and 2 of the names on that 12 name list were young men that news articles claimed were close friends of the Chief Justice. So Pamela says she needs an endorsement. Yes, Pamela, it is so. The HDC, their housing policy allows for that. So if you are filling out an application, you can actually go to your MP and ask your MP to endorse or whatever. So when I saw the housing stories, I thought, well, this is curious, because what you'd need to show is that that's not part of the regular housing policy. And it is part of the regular housing policy. You can endorse persons. And yes, correct, Bacch, the HCC will ask for a clean police record. And all of the persons on that 12-person list would have served their time. The HDC also has provisional lists for a range of different groups. So people who are high risk, people who are in the armed services. There are lots of different groups and groupings that they have for the allocation of housing. And what the policy indicates is that they try to keep a certain amount of housing for at-risk persons or people who are not necessarily in a position to go through the banks and arrange a regular mortgage like everybody else. So that was the housing situation. Then The next angle that they went with was this angle. And this is what everybody's here for. This is what all they want to know. This is what all they're interested in. I ain't stupid. Correct, Bacch. You're absolutely correct. A recommendation from a high office holder such as the Chief Justice would have gone a long way in assisting these 12 former convicts or persons formerly in the prison system being able to get access to housing. And what people need to be reminded of is that housing is something that is something provided by the state, and it is meant to be access to everybody. So I'm going to play. Listen, apart of me not even sure I still want to play this now, but I am going to play a clip. And I'm going to play this clip. And then I will speak. Then I will speak to it. There's a part of me don't even want to have my face here, but say what? Here we go. Are you ready? Ugh. I have to raise the volume here. Sorry. Forgive me.
Is that the Chief Justice trying to kill you?
Girl, I clone a phone and I was seeing him conversing with people.
Okay, all right.
All right. Let me play that bit over for you. Because this is the part, I mean, the reason I am playing this and the reason I'm letting you all listen to this is that I feel it is important for folks to have a sense of the undercurrents that would have been taking place with respect to this entire thing, this entire fiasco centered around the Chief Justice. So in re-listening to these recordings, one of the things that struck me, there are a couple of things that struck me. Dillian would have reached out to me, and the first time Dillian reached out to me, he asked me to meet him in PTSC car park. And when he asked me to meet him in PTSC car park, this is by Citygate, right? I met him in Citygate. I parked up, I went over to his vehicle, I sat down in his vehicle. And he called two persons while I was in his vehicle. The first person he called was Devant, and he spoke to Devant for maybe about 7 minutes, somewhere thereabouts. And in the course of the conversation, he didn't let Devant know that I was in the car. I don't know if he told Devant afterwards that I was in the car, but when he called Devant, he didn't tell Devant that I was in the car. And he and Devant had a very frank conversation. And he was asking Devant questions about Annan and Annan's focus on the Chief Justice, and why was, Annan Ram Logan so interested in this issue where the Chief Justice is concerned. And Devant was speaking freely because, of course, he didn't know that I was in the vehicle. And Dillian was telling Devant that he wasn't happy about the way in which certain things were being done with respect to the attack on the Chief Justice. And then after that phone call wrapped up, Dillian then called the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice answered the phone. They had a short conversation. Dillian told him in the conversation that he wanted him to speak to me, and the Chief Justice indicated to Dillian that he would not be speaking to anybody working in media or anything like that. And I'm telling you this because I want it to be full disclosure that I was in his vehicle. He called Devant, and then he called the Chief Justice and had conversations with both of them. Now I'm going to play the recording. Enjoy.
What makes you so convinced that the Chief Justice is the Chief Justice trying to kill you?
Girl, I clone a phone and I was seeing him conversing with people.
Okay, all right. So then the same messages that you talked about before, the WhatsApp messages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was actually watching him online, watching the bitch online, talking to people and they telling him where they don't even know where I am. I said, I don't know where he get himself a fly by night people. Because by you seeing my vehicle doesn't mean that I am driving the vehicle. I would believe that proper people doing an investigation would wait until the driver steps out or they get visual confirmation, and then you make your statements.
Do you still have access to his phone and the messages and stuff?
No.
Okay.
I have access to the messages because I screenshot it all.
Right.
But
So that had me disturbed. One, that he managed to get a phone and that he cloned the phone and that he had screenshot all of the messages from off the phone. There's that, but let it continue.
the phone, he, like, I don't know, he carried it into somebody or somebody must tell him how I did it.
Yeah.
But I no longer have access to his phone.
Okay. And what about your friends, the other friends and them here? What you know, how you and them interacting?
I rest down everybody.
Alright.
Because in the first place is Devon Marat who leaked this whole thing to the media.
Are you serious?
I am positively sure.
Devon is the one who leaked all of this to the media?
That's right.
But
Up to the time I left Trinidad and Tobago and came to the UK, all of a sudden the press know. How come since I stopped talking to Devon that the press, everything just died down?
So, okay, so when did you and Devon stop talking? Because to me, all his friends are wild now.
Yeah, I stopped talking to him about 2 weeks now, or 3 weeks now, or more.
Okay, so when the stories had started to break, like say from, what is it? Is around October,
Last year
right?
sometime.
Last year sometime. You and Devon were still talking when the stories had broken, right?
Yes.
And so did you ask him?
Let
Did
me
you
tell
ask?
you how I could tell you is Devon.
Okay, I listen.
Because I don't have the energy to go through all that.
Okay.
The only people that knew that I went to Guyana with Archie was me, Devon, and my mother. My mother ain't talking. Archie ain't go talk that. Who else go talk it?
I need to add something in here because it is the bit that I need to add is in another part of a recording. Dillian says that he went to Guyana with Archie. Later on in another recording, when I ask him, did the state pay for you to go to Guyana? He says no. He paid for his own plane ticket and he left Trinidad and he went to Guyana and and went to the hotel. So I then said, well, who paid for that? He paid for it out of pocket. And I thought it was interesting that he was told that the Chief Justice was in Guyana and he followed the Chief Justice to Guyana. But let me continue.
Devon, I guess.
Alright, when I got shot, the people that I called was my mother to tell her I just got shot. She called the police. I called Archie. When he heard my voice, he sounded surprised on the phone. He hung up the phone. I texted him. He never responded. I called Devon and I told him, I said, boy, I just got shot outside my home. While I sitting in the ambulance, before the ambulance could even pull out from in front of my door, I watching online Luke TT, which is fucking UNC beast. Don't start the blast. Dylan Johnson have now been shot. Have just been shot. The ambulance ain't moved yet.
Jeez.
I'm going to stop the recording there. And I'm going to wrap up because we're at, 8:30. I'm going to wrap up the live there. But there's more that I will want to discuss with you all, because the story that builds from this is a story of entrapment. Some of you looking on have already started to connect some of the dots. The impression given based on the things that were said to me in this particular recording is that an attempt was made to entrap an official and then use circumstantial evidence from the entrapment of the official to hound the official out of office. Not on the basis of having breached any laws, but on the basis of public opinion. So I'm going to go back to where I started when we talked about Roe versus Wade. You have to be careful about who and what you allow to make laws, and who and what you allow to influence how you think about your society, how you think about laws, how you think about legislation. You also have to be careful about who and what you allow to influence how you think about the application of those laws. Because if, as the dots suggest, there was entrapment, then we could have easily gotten rid of a Chief Justice for reasons that had nothing to do with the breaking of laws or illegality. But there is more that we need to discuss, because I have to show you the various layers to this and build on it and get you to understand that there were a number of working parts and moving parts at play over the 2-year period from 2017 into 2018 with respect to this issue involving the Chief Justice. So, I hope you all had a good evening, and we gonna talk to each other soon. Yeah? So I will I'm looking to I've started back the live. So Friday coming we will have a live. We will be talking, and we have lots of interesting things that we need to be discussing. So I'll see you all on Friday. All right?
We got